So hi everybody, welcome back. This is a video about model I'm trying to work right now, and it's probably some that will be extremely long. The base there is not the best one, so let's take this a little bit wider, I want to have a crash like you've seen in the previous video about the Porsche, when the models fall off. So here it is. Already made my mess. Yes. So this is the GT40. The mighty GT40, and I am being GT40 Model Works, it should be one of my favorite kits ever. So this is the Rebox from Revell. Box is that one. Basically Revell made 3-4 years ago, so I think around 2020-21. It is a Rebox, even if they call it new, it is absolutely not new. It is a Rebox from the Eshi, Eshi. No. It is a Rebox from the Fujimi. To take that. There it is. This is a Rebox of the Fujimi kit. So Fujimi kit is, in my opinion, remains still with all its problems. It remains anyway the best option, to build up an MK.1. That should be car number 9, so it should be the chassis number 1075, the famous one, the twin Le Mans in 1969. So a very great feature inside this box, it is that finally Revell made, as usual Revell have excellent products, and the decals are made, you see, they say printed in Italy down there. So this is a cartograph decal sheet that usually you can neither buy alone outside of the box, so you have to buy the entire box. Nearly is worth it to buy the complete box, because this is so far much better than any Fujimi sheet, the sheet provided by Fujimi are a little bit crispy to work with, and the decal very easy to bend and get crack. Instead, the Revell one is usually excellent stuff. They also provide the ones for the tire, so it is an excellent choice. Also the guarnition for the side windows and the rear window and the front frame. So in this car it was even if in the box art they made it quite precise, but it was a critical point inside all the Fujimi kits. So my suggestion is absolutely to search for this model. It's something that you will buy around, I think it's around 30 euros, something like that, and so it's also limited edition, so probably it is a part of a joint venture between Revell and Fujimi to reissue this model about the GT40. GT40 always have been available in the Fujimi brand. They also placed the stunning box art over the Fujimi box. This is absolutely nicer than this one. This one by Revell is, I don't know, that is the designer. So, but this is nothing important. What's inside of the box is the classical Fujimi kit, that in my opinion is, if you already seen my social media page, you know that I already produced back in time the red GT40, the last GT40 produced in the MK.1 configuration. MK.1 was the version of the GT40 with the lower tail. It was lower because the engine inside that engine was the V8 for the 289. So the 289 unit and the 302 unit are quite similar, V8 engine. And to do this model, this model I started to build up again. I just wanted to improve in my way, because in my opinion the shape of the 1075 chassis is absolutely not taken by Fujimi, despite they made the mold a little bit different from the other box than Fujimi does. They do also the Bianchi car, the Team France, they do several versions of the MK1. You will find that absolutely available because they reissue quite often this model. It's basically the only MK1 available around. The Meng model arrived recently on the market. Is a very nice looking model, pricey, pricey meaning the dimension of what they offer today, so all the models are in that price range, so it's absolutely nothing special. But in my opinion, I have an ugly mistake that is probably much more hard to correct than the Fujimi ones. This body that you are looking is hugely reworked, and later on I will show you where and how. Despite the Meg model have an horrific, first of all, is an MK2 version car, so it is the one featuring the 427 engine and not the 289, so it much higher tail. It was the black car, the black GT40 winning at Le Mans, but all the rear hatch is completely different, it's not this way at all, it's much higher up with the double intake for the motor, so it's a different body basically. Also the MK2 have different front nose depending from the race they have been used. That was the MK2B, that is a little more bulged on the lower part around the wheels there. Is that this is purely the MK1 Gulf flared, so the MK1 body from 1969. It is different from the bodies of 1966 because they were much more narrow on the side, both in the front and both in the rear, despite the JV car, so the John Wire car, they were the Gulf car, the famous one driven by Jack Hicks that started slowly at Le Mans in the 24 hours. It is this body configuration. And what I had to do, if you have that model and you are looking this video right now, just please take the body that you will find inside the box and look the difference that you will see from my body. So basically the Gulf body is much more bulged on the wheels. This was because the car was featuring much bigger and wider tires, that are also not provided inside the car. So to make a correct 1075 you also have to do that kind of modification, and for such purpose I made it by my own. This is something that you can find in my range of the GT40s.com catalog. This is the, there is a bulge. This is the wide wheels of the sports car of the 70s, printed in solid resin. This is not rubber, this is solid resin, but they are much more wider, to have an idea, compared to the ones that you can find in the box, that is basically the rear wheels is this one. So you can see that there is a quite huge difference. I think I picked up a front one. No, it was a rear one, because the front one is even slimmer, and became this way. Instead, no, in my opinion, the GT40, even if you look closely at all the pictures of the Gulf GT40, the most aggressive version of the Gulf car, she had much more wider wheels, and in my opinion these ones of the sports car are much more suitable for the purpose. Then you have absolutely to fit inside the rim. It was the magnesium sprocket wheel. I don't know if it was made by Hellebrand, I don't remember it, but it is quite famous. There is many book reference. The best ever is the Ford that beat Ferrari. The book written by Allen, I think it was. And so you have to enhance the wheels and make them much wider. So for such purpose also all the rear fender have to be completely modified. I had to increase all the fenders of the model, and I proceed that way. So I cut completely the side panel. I hope you can see that from my video, the side panel down there, and I enlarge it of a couple of millimeters for each side. So it's 2 and 2 there, still at the 2 down there written in pencil. And even more on the rear fenders, you have to create something like that. You see? Much more wider, and this is quite tricky and complicated procedure, because to obtain the proper body and the proper shape, you also have to create the connection between the side intake and the new rear bulged wheel that you are going to create. If you're looking at your parts and your body from the original Fujimi kit, they are much more slimmer, so of course they cannot fit the enlarged tires. Many modelers do it anyway like it is, but in my opinion the correct body for a 1075 is this one. Plus when I made all this conversion, and this is already something that takes quite a lot of bit of time. In the beginning I just wanted to, I didn't neither wanted to build up another GT40, because I bought this model nearly immediately after I finished my first GT40 I made in red, and that was the one owned by the Fittipaldi family, so it was in Brazil, it was without the wiper, so it was a particular car, very special one. But then I started to work again over this one, because I wanted to, in my opinion, you have to have absolutely the proper correct side and shapes on the GT40. Also note that nearly all the pictures that you can find around of the replica cars, they are replicating the body of the Gulf flared version, so it's nearly never the narrow version. I think it is just the RCR company from Frenhal. They do incredibly nice replicas, you know. They also provide the real original body for the narrow MK1 from 1966, and it is really different. But the 90, the majority of the replicas that you can see around made by Tornado in UK, by the KWC, sorry, in UK, and GTD, Cav. There is several, you know, Superformers. So they all replicate the Gulf flared version car. So that's why I think is probably also the market think the same. It is much more aggressive in this shape, you know, because the shape of the GT40 is absolutely much better taken, you know. Plus, because I'm waiting in this day to leave my office here, my studio here, I have to return back to my country, and I have to leave for some weeks, so I cannot start a new project. So I wanted just to go on a little further with this long modification of this model, and the idea became then to make it a fully open version of the GT40 in the same line of I did with my Pantera, with my 917, and with my 956 cars, you know, the orange car driven by Stefan Bello. Usually when I do such kind of models, I make them fully openable and with all the hinges working, you know. Probably in this model I'm having quite issues, you know, because I have to plan a kind of hinge for the inner main door, and this is a little bit tricky because I posted also an interesting picture on my Facebook page. Note that I also started the Instagram page, so if you search for me like GT40 Model Works, you can find the same stuff there. You see that I'm not so used with that platform, so I don't know if it is so easy to find me and to find my videos and my picture, but I try, you know, give it a try. Many told me try also Instagram because they have a bigger probably number of people that can watch the video, because it's probably much more common than Facebook that I use much more. So I don't know, guys, I'm old boomer here, so I don't know so much about that. But the idea so became to make it a full open version, and probably the part that will be more interesting it is the rear hatch, you know, because the body provided by Fujimi is, as I said, with all this modification, in my opinion, became already the car, you know. Remember that as I made the video for the die cast, I don't know if I already published it or not. In my opinion, the most reliable and the most look-alike version of the 124 scale model kits, scale model, sorry, not model kits, is the one made by Centauri in the Spanish series of the racing car of the Endurance. You know, they made a kind of test, you know, in the diecast model in 124. So I don't know if it is made by X or who else. I really don't know. Suspect it can be by X, but they made an excellent replica in diecast of the GT40 1075. You know, also there I think the issue is around the wheel, because they just made it very wide without any bulge on the side, so it's a little bit simplified, you know, but it's a very nice and cheap model. I think I bought that one for coming from Spain, because this is not stuff that you can buy in Italy, and you have to buy that online in eBay or Amazon, and I think I bought it for $50, something like that, you know. But it was anyway worth it, because anyway the work that you have to do to convert the Fujimi body into this is a little bit complicated. It's nothing so big, you know, but it's anyway a little bit complicated stuff, so it's not so easy. Not all the modelers want to do the stuff. In my opinion, it's not so difficult, but you know, it's worth it to do it. Plus, if you want to open the body, you know, the Fujimi model is a little bit old-fashioned, because they studied the separation of the parts like they did in the early 80s. I think the original mold from Fujimi, it is a mold from the 80s, you know, and the body of the GT40 is so curved on the lower side, so they force you every time to fold the body to place the inner chassis inside. Plus, inside the model they add, this is the lower part of the front end chassis, so basically it is the part that is missing there. And if you place also this without separating that, it became nearly impossible to finish your model. I remember the first time ever I made this kit from Fujimi, about the 1075 model. I think it was about 30 years ago, as soon as the model arrived on the market. And I get so pissed off because when I wanted to close the model, that was still anyway in the narrow version with all the mistakes that we said from the original Fujimi body, I liked it anyway so much the car that when I tried to place inside the inner lower chassis together with the wheels and so on, that seems an easy operation, I completely cracked the body. So it was disappointing. So my tip is always, or if you do like I did, so basically you keep the chassis like the original car was, so without the front. This squared part was basically a frame chassis made with rectangular tubes holding the front end radiator. You know, there was a couple of tubes. There is many pictures of that, but this is just an area made with panel, riveted panel in aluminium closing an area. So it is not a part that is made in real stainless steel. Remember that the GT40 was probably, I think, the first racer that performed using a monocoque chassis like an ordinary car from the production line. All the other racers were made in tubular frame chassis. Instead, the GT40 have the internal monocoque, the famous monocoque chassis that was made by Ford Advanced Vehicles. So it was the Lola basically making the chassis for the GT40 in UK. So basically this was, despite it became famous like an American racer, this was a car basically made and produced with the idea of the Lola sports car, you know, the Lola cars in UK. And then with the money of the Ford, it became the famous GT40 because they put probably a bloodbath to develop such a racing car to kill Ferrari in the 60s, you know. And so my idea is anyway to divide the body. It would be even better if not only you cut away the part like I did here, but also if you can cut away on this line. I hope that you can see on this line the side that usually cover the side tankers, you know, under here, this part. Cut it completely and you will have no problem and no issues in closing your model. Then such part you paint it apart and you will fix over the model. Of course, it becomes a little bit complicated because if you look at the paint scheme over there, there is a decals, so it's not so easy to do such procedure, you know. As you see, the 9 will be cut, then you have to be a little precise doing that procedure. You see how narrow is the the rear tail of the GT40. Also, this is a little bit mistaken because if you look closely at the picture, it is slightly different. You know, I don't know neither if my version is so precise. It's absolutely very similar to the replica ones, you know. That is probably the one that I have more references about, but I suspect that this line have to be even lower here, covering a little, because the wheel looks a little inside the wheel arch, you know, not so exposed like in many replicas. Plus, in this model, as I said, I wanted to recreate the feature of the lower hatch. You know, in the GT40s, the lower hatch was opening in this position or coming up in this size, and the hinges were on this side. I don't think I want to recreate such stuff, because also when I was in Le Mans in 2006, in Le Mans Classic, it was an event in Le Mans. Over the Le Mans 24-hour track, they made the Le Mans Classic with historical vehicle. There is a video about me and my friends on YouTube, you know, when I was over a replica holding together with the guys from the British club of the GT40s, you know. They featured the real original ones, I mean, together with 4 GTs that at the time was not so special supercar like it became today, and a lot of these GT40s, and I was inside the Tornado in the long Le Mans Sartre track, you know, and believe me, it was absolutely a blast because the car was anyway incredibly fast. And I wanted to recreate the lower edge, because also I see that the back part, sorry, of the car, it is true that they had this opening coming up, you know, typical like a toy, so that was critical to have the stop hinges. This they create like in the real car, real pins going inside, you know, holding the front part of the monocoque with the metal pin. When the model will be completed, this will be holding over there. Plus, it will probably add magnet. Later on, I will show you how the magnet works, you know. And I wanted to recreate also the engine bay. Let's see if I can show you. Because basically, you know, in the Fujimi kit, you don't have any engine, you know. The engine is there. Probably the oil pot is not so correct, and I will change forward, we will see. And probably the biggest issue ever that I will have here, you cannot see right now from here, and I have just one hand, so I cannot open the car as I should, you know, to show you which is the real problem that I have down there. The real problem, to make it easy, it is that, as you see, there is the two exhausts there, that it is a 4-in-1, so 4 plus 4-in-1, that they became like a kind of snake coming from the manifold of the engine, you know. So both the headers 4 and 4 of the V8 have to end in such stuff. So probably to recreate the snakes coming from the engine pipes will be the hardest part of this configuration. But as you can see, there is quite a big amount of space and quite a huge room to work about that detail, as well as for the upper carburetor. I have to find it again, some EDA 48 carburetor, you know, despite they are covered, because if you see the picture, they had anyway over a filter that is closing this upper part. All this part is completely closed in the Fujimi kit. You will have something like this. I can show you now. This is basically the parts that they provide for the other version of the MK1, but you will have in the kit something like that, closed, you know. So you need to be opened, thinnered, and modified, you know, to host the motor. The motor is coming from that one. I need just to find a basic for the 289 from a Revell kit, you know. I think there was a big racing conversion that I cannot have the possibility to find any longer right now, with all this issue completely fixed, you know, and it was meant to do the model completely open, but I don't have that modification, so I cannot do it. And as far as I know right now, still nobody of the 3D guys made a really nice conversion for the engine bay of the MK1. Of course, if you think about that, if you want to go for such kind of detail, you have to recreate the engine, plus you have to recreate the rear hatch. This was made, I think, back in time by Le Mans Miniature, the French company making racing details, you know. Plus the front end, probably, I never seen this convention, but I see a guy here in Sweden that bought all of them and used all of them, and you see how drastically changed the body from the 966 to the 68 and 69. 68 version at the little line over here, drop line over the wheel, is a kind of bender over the rear fender, so you can see how it is made a little different for the 68 car. The 68 car was the other number. I think it was the car number 9, if I'm not wrong, so it was 6 and 9. I have to remember which chassis it was. So that's it. I'm going for this type of modifications, and the engine sits down there. I think also the position is quite correct. Of course, you have to recreate also the hole coming from the monocoque chassis going to the rear wheels with all the brackets, you know, very similar to a Formula 1 car for the suspensions, as well as you have to cut it away. In the original model of Fujimi, there is here an ugly plate holding two boxes. It is two boxes that for regulation they had to have inside the car, as well as from the front chassis. Now I will show you how it works. As from the front chassis, you have to recreate the bay for the spare wheel. It was not really a spare wheel, but as we seen in the 917 video, the wheel was basically a mock-up of the rim, a real rim with a mock-up of the tire, so they didn't change the tire that way, but they had to carry that over the car for regulation of the Le Mans series, you know. And the final part, because the video is becoming a little too bit long, and if you are still here, maybe you are interested in this. So the final part is this. I made this kind of work here, as you can see, with two magnets. I used micro magnets that I bought online, you see. Then you have to dig inside the plastic, so it's quite easy with the Dremel, with the Proxon, you know. There is the mighty Proxon, you know. And you can basically place them inside the plastic part, so they became a little coming upside. And then I use the pins in metal to do a magnet effect over there, you see. That is the pins there and there, as well as up here it is for the doors. Because when I cut the body, you know, you have to place some kind of plastic reinforcement on the A-pillar of the car. Remember that this was just a fiberglass plastic over the monocoque chassis, so it was basically to have a kind of protection, but it was absolutely not a real carrosserie body. It was absolutely not something made in aluminum and so on. It was a fiberglass, ordinary fiberglass, holding together the car, covering the part of a Lola racer with the Ford 289, you know. And basically the same stuff have been done over the side doors, you know. And I have to study something. I have something in my mind already to project something that allow me to keep the doors opening and in closed position, because this is the closed position. As you can see, is also quite precise, you know, being quite tricky and complicated to cut over this line This is very complicated, honestly. It is, but it is absolutely not easy at all. But as you can see, it is anyway holding together pretty decently, you know. It is something that, echo, as I just said, consider that I still miss the hinge down there. But for example, the front part where I can use two magnets, that will be something if I drop also the front one right now. Not easy to work with one hand. There it is. So this is the part, you see, this is much more steady because you have two of them. And of course, when the model is finished, this is just when you move the model, not to have them turning around, you see, quite steady, because it is two. Instead, for the doors, I plan to do something like this. So the magnet there is basically to keep the door in the closed position, this way, when there will be the hinge inside the inner part of the body there. This because I like a lot the model, as I say, like my 956 and my Pantera and the 970, when you both have the possibility to see, for depending of what your taste is in the moment, to have the real shape of the car this way or the fully open version. While the rear hatch, I will not create the hinge, I will just make the rear hatch completely openable, because I've seen also in the real car that being so big part, very often they simply take away the pins from the rear hatch and they completely remove it to have the free access to the engine and to the maintenance of the car, you know. So nearly all the picture of the GT40, it is closed body in the front but without the rear hatch, so the mechanical can work on it. So that's it. This is the work so far until now. I think it deserves a video, you know. GT40 is always in my mind, and I don't consider, as I say, the MAG model a satisfying version, even more because I like much more the MK1 version of the GT40. So if you are after an MK2 car, you can think about that, but the MAG model have an ugly mistake in the front light. I mean, if you see, in this fujimi didn't make it wrong, so if you make the proper modification on the front fender, you will not touch the front light area, you know. I basically just remove the lower spotlight, was the fog fender, I think, for the night, and the lights, and the front lights is correct from the picture that you can see online. Instead, if you see the finished model, also made by very good modelers, of the front end in the MAG model, the front light look much more fake, much more ugly, look much more like in the Ford GT, so the angle and the light dimension is completely mistaken, in my opinion. And it is sad, because with that stuff fixed, the model could be incredibly better. That is something that I cannot stand in the MAG model, so that is the reason why I don't like that type of model. And I still think that the best option, without going for resin, it is still to work over the old and crap Fujimi model, that is anyway, as you can see, still performing quite decently, you know, if basically reworked in the proper way. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and see you, I don't know when right now, because probably taking a pause for the summer, and I'm moving to a country where currently the temperature is about 45 degrees, so I don't think that I will work over my models with such temperatures, you know. And even more, I don't know when I will go on with this type of GT40, because this is something that I want to do little by little in my spare time, like those weeks have been right now here. So that's it, guys, and see you in the next.